My name is Marlene, and I'm 32 years old. Right now, I'm standing outside a luxury car dealership, watching through the glass window as my parents hand over a check to my younger brother Trevor. The amount on that check is $725,000. $725,000. For his investment in a luxury sports car collection business. 3 years ago, I asked them for $70,000 to launch my tech startup, a software platform that could revolutionize healthcare scheduling. Their exact words still echo in my head like a curse. It's too risky, Marlene. We can't throw money away. Through the dealership window, Trevor catches my eye and smirks. My hands are trembling as I clutch the rejection letter from investors in my purse. Before we dive into this story, I'd love to know where you're watching from. Drop your city or country in the comments below. If you've ever felt underestimated by the people who were supposed to believe in you most, hit that like button. And please subscribe because this journey is about proving that sometimes the biggest favor someone can do for you is telling you no. Now, let me take you back to where this all began. 3 years ago, when I was 29, I was working as a software engineer at a major tech company. The job was stable, the salary was good, and everyone thought I had it made. But every night after work and every weekend for 2 years, I had been building something else. Something I believed could actually change lives. I called it MedFlow Solutions, an artificial intelligence-driven scheduling software specifically designed for healthcare systems. The problem I was trying to solve was massive. Hospital staff were burning out from scheduling conflicts, patients were falling through cracks in the system, and care quality was suffering because nobody could coordinate efficiently. My prototype wasn't just theory. I had been testing it quietly at a local clinic, and the results were undeniable. 93% efficiency improvement. Staff satisfaction went through the roof. Patient care became smoother, more coordinated, more humane. I had saved $30,000 of my own money, cutting every corner in my personal life to build this dream. But to take it to the next level, to file patents, incorporate the business legally, launch initial marketing, and hire my first employee, I needed $70,000 more. It wasn't a wild number. It was calculated, researched, backed by data. I had a business plan that showed we would break even in 18 months and hit $2 million in revenue by year 3. I knew the market gap. I knew my competitive advantage. I knew this could work. So I asked my parents for help. I requested a family dinner at their house, a formal Sunday meal in their elegant dining room. My father Harrison was 61, a successful real estate developer who had built his career on calculated risks. My mother Vivian was 58, a former lawyer who had retired to focus on family and charity work. And then there was Trevor, my younger brother, who was 25 at the time and had recently dropped out of college for the 3rd time. I brought my laptop to dinner and set up a presentation. I showed them the demo of MedFlow, walked them through the business plan page by page, presented market research, and shared financial projections. My parents nodded politely, asked surface-level questions about the technology and the healthcare industry, and seemed genuinely interested at first. But then my father's concerns started creeping in. Technology changes so fast, Marlene, he said, cutting into his steak. And healthcare is so heavily regulated. Are you sure you understand what you're getting into? My mother chimed in with her worry. You have such a stable job right now. Why would you risk that? What if this doesn't work out? I countered every concern with facts. I explained the market gap, the competitive landscape, the regulatory pathways I had already researched. I showed them my personal savings commitment, proof that I had skin in the game. I wasn't asking them to fund a fantasy. I was asking them to invest in something real, something tested, something that was already showing results. But when I finished my presentation, my father leaned back in his chair and delivered his verdict like a judge sentencing me. $70,000 is too much money to gamble on something so uncertain. My mother nodded in agreement. We didn't raise you to be reckless, Marlene. This feels impulsive. They suggested I keep my corporate job and pursue the startup as a hobby on the side, something I could tinker with in my spare time without real commitment. That's when Trevor, sitting across the table from me with a smug expression, decided to add his opinion. "Maybe chicks just aren't cut out for tech startups, sis." He said it so casually, like he was commenting on the weather. I waited for my parents to correct him, to defend me, to say anything. They said nothing. My father just added, "When you're more established, maybe we'll reconsider. But right now, this feels premature." I left dinner early that night, my laptop clutched under my arm, humiliation burning in my chest. I drove home crying, but somewhere during that drive, the tears turned into something else: determination. A hardness formed around my heart like armor. I made a decision right there in my car. I would do this anyway. I would bootstrap it with my savings and whatever credit I could access. I would prove them wrong. I launched MedFlow Solutions with only my $30,000 and more determination than capital. The sacrifices started immediately. I moved out of my decent apartment into a tiny studio that barely fit a bed and a desk. I sold my car and started taking public transit everywhere, adding an hour to my commute each way. I worked 18-hour days, maintaining my corporate job while building the startup at night because I needed the income. Every dollar was accounted for. I stopped eating out, stopped buying anything that wasn't absolutely essential, stopped having any kind of social life. I found cheaper alternatives for everything the business needed. Instead of hiring a professional marketing firm, I taught myself digital marketing through free online courses. Instead of paying for expensive design work, I used freelance platforms to find talented people in other countries who charged a fraction of what local agencies wanted. And slowly, painfully, it started to work. My first major breakthrough came when a small clinic agreed to pilot the program for free. They were skeptical but willing to try anything because their scheduling was such a disaster. The results were spectacular. We reduced their scheduling errors by 87%. Staff satisfaction scores went up dramatically. The clinic administrator gave me a glowing testimonial and agreed to be a case study. Armed with that proof, I finally managed to secure a small angel investment of $40,000 from Wendell, a mentor I had met at a tech networking event. He was 64, semi-retired from a successful tech career, and he believed in me when almost nobody else did. With that funding, I made the terrifying decision to quit my corporate job and go full-time on MedFlow. It was the leap I had been dreaming of but also the scariest moment of my life. Things should have gotten easier after that, but my family made sure they didn't. At family gatherings, my parents started using diminishing language about my business. They called it my little project or my hobby business or my experiment, never using words like company or startup or venture. Trevor openly mocked me every chance he got. He showed up to Thanksgiving wearing a new luxury watch, made a show of checking it, and asked me loudly in front of everyone if I was making pennies yet with my little software thing. At that same Thanksgiving dinner, my Aunt Gretchen asked me how the business was going, genuine interest in her voice. Before I could answer, my father interrupted. "She's playing entrepreneur," he said with a dismissive wave of his hand. My mother added, "We worry she threw away a perfectly good career for this." I tried to defend myself, pulling out my phone to show them growth metrics and client testimonials. My father glanced at the screen for half a second. "Anyone can get 1 or 2 small clients," he said. "That doesn't mean it's a real business." Trevor's girlfriend Bethany, who was sitting next to him, smirked at me. "Must be so hard living in that tiny apartment," she said in a voice dripping with false sympathy. I bit my tongue so hard I tasted blood. I stayed professional, smiled politely, and changed the subject. But inside, rage and hurt were building like pressure in a sealed container. The first major betrayal came a few months later. I had been working for weeks to close a deal with a mid-sized hospital network. The contract was worth $200,000 and would be a huge breakthrough for MedFlow, the kind of client that would legitimize us in the industry and open doors to even bigger opportunities. I was so excited that I made the mistake of sharing the news at a family dinner. I told everyone about the hospital network, about how close we were to signing, about what it would mean for the company. Trevor seemed unusually interested, asking detailed questions about the client, about the decision makers, about the timeline. I thought maybe he was finally taking me seriously, finally seeing that I was building something real. A week later, the hospital network suddenly went cold. The administrator stopped returning my calls and emails. The contract that had seemed like a done deal evaporated into silence. I was devastated and confused until an industry contact told me what happened. Someone had contacted the hospital administrator claiming to be a concerned insider in the healthcare tech industry. This person told them that Medflow was unstable, that the company was about to fold, that they should go with a more established competitor. My contact was able to trace the call back to Trevor. He had found the administrator's information and deliberately sabotaged my deal. I drove straight to my parents' house and confronted him. Trevor was in the living room playing video games, and when I accused him of sabotaging my client, he didn't even pause the game. "You're paranoid," he said, eyes still on the screen. "Maybe they just didn't want your product." My parents came into the room and immediately took his side. "Trevor wouldn't do something like that," my mother said firmly. "You're being dramatic," my father added. "Maybe this is a sign that you should consider going back to corporate work. This entrepreneurship thing is clearly stressing you out." I stood there in their living room, my hands shaking with fury, looking at the three of them and realizing that no amount of evidence would make them see the truth. They had chosen their side, and it wasn't mine. I left that house that day with something broken inside me, but also with a harder, sharper determination. They wanted me to fail. Fine. I would succeed so spectacularly that they couldn't ignore it. 6 months after Trevor sabotaged my hospital deal, he made an announcement at Sunday brunch. I almost didn't go to that brunch, but Aunt Gretchen had specifically asked me to come, and I didn't want to disappoint her. Trevor stood up at the table like he was about to give a toast and announced that he had a new business idea. He called it a luxury vehicle investment collective. The concept, as he explained it, was to buy exotic cars like Ferraris, Lamborghinis, and vintage Porsches, then rent them out to wealthy clients for premium prices and eventually sell them as they appreciated in value. My parents' reaction was immediate and intense. They leaned forward in their chairs, eyes bright with interest. "That's fascinating, son," my father said, already nodding approval. "Tell us more about this." Trevor's presentation was barely coherent. He had a printed PowerPoint with stock photos of expensive cars and vague, unsupported numbers. When I asked him about his market research, he admitted he had mostly just browsed Instagram accounts of car influencers and lifestyle bloggers. He had no prototype, no beta test, no actual business experience whatsoever. His projected revenue was laughable. "Could be millions, Dad," Trevor said with unearned confidence. "Rich people love this stuff. It's a lifestyle thing." My mother was nodding enthusiastically. "It sounds so exciting and tangible," she said. "Not like software we can't see or touch." I couldn't stay quiet. I spoke up, trying to be the voice of reason, pointing out that Trevor had no business plan, no market validation, and that luxury car rental had incredibly high capital requirements with razor-thin margins. My father cut me off before I could finish my second sentence. "Trevor has a vision," he said sharply. "This is different from what you're doing." I pressed harder. "How is it different? You told me 70,000 was too risky. This idea would require way more than that." My mother's voice was cold. "Cars are real assets, Marlene. They hold value. They're not just code on a computer." Trevor was grinning at me across the table, enjoying every second of my frustration. "Maybe you're just jealous," he said. Then my father dropped the bomb. He announced that he and my mother were willing to discuss a significant investment in Trevor's venture, that they believed in his vision and wanted to set him up for success. I tried one more time to inject logic into the conversation. I explained the high insurance costs for exotic vehicles, the depreciation issues, the liability concerns, the fact that most luxury car rental businesses fail within 3 years. My parents weren't listening. Their minds were made up. Your brother deserves a chance, just like you got yours, my father said. That sentence made something snap inside me. I didn't get mine, I shouted, louder than I intended. You refused me. You said 70,000 was gambling. My mother's voice turned icy. We offered to reconsider when you were established. You're still struggling. The dinner ended in tense silence. I went home that night and did what I should have done from the beginning. I researched Trevor's idea thoroughly, spending hours compiling data on the luxury car rental market. What I found confirmed every concern I had raised. The market was oversaturated. Most luxury car rental businesses failed within 3 years. Insurance costs alone would consume about $50,000 annually. Storage, maintenance, and depreciation would eat whatever profits might exist. There were already similar businesses in our city that had folded because the economics didn't work. I put together a comprehensive report with charts, graphs, and case studies. I emailed it to my parents with a clear subject line: important information about Trevor's business proposal. My father's response came 2 hours later. You're being unsupportive of your brother. This is disappointing. My mother sent a separate email. Siblings should lift each other up, not tear down. I expected better from you. There was no acknowledgement of the research, no engagement with the facts, no indication that they had even read the report. I sat at my desk staring at those emails and finally understood the truth. They wanted to give Trevor money. The facts didn't matter. The viability of the business didn't matter. What mattered was that Trevor was their golden child, and I was not. 2 weeks later, my parents called a family meeting at their house. The formal tone of the invitation made my stomach twist with dread. When I arrived, Trevor was already there, practically glowing with anticipation. We all sat down in the living room, and my father cleared his throat like he was about to make a corporate announcement. We've made a decision about Trevor's business, he said. We're going to invest in his vision. Then he said the number: $725,000. I felt the blood drain from my face. My ears started ringing. 725,000. My father continued talking, explaining that this amount would cover the purchase of multiple vehicles, insurance for the first year, facility rental for storage and operations, and operating costs to give Trevor a proper runway. My mother added that they believed in Trevor's vision, that this was the kind of tangible, understandable business they could get behind. Trevor was smiling so broadly I thought his face might split. Thanks, Mom, Dad, he said. I won't let you down. I sat frozen on the couch, unable to speak, unable to move. My father kept talking, explaining how they were setting Trevor up properly, not doing this halfway, giving him every advantage. Then, my mother said something that felt like a knife between my ribs. We learned from certain situations that underfunding leads to struggle, she said, glancing at me. We don't want Trevor to go through what some people go through when they don't have adequate capital. Finally, I found my voice. You're giving him 10 times what I asked for. My father didn't even pause. Trevor's business requires more capital. It's a different scale. My business had proven results, I said, my voice rising. I had beta testing. I had real clients showing real improvements. My mother's voice was sharp. Lower your voice. This isn't about you. I started listing everything Medflow had accomplished. The clients we had saved money. The efficiency improvements we had documented. The testimonials from actual healthcare administrators. The awards we had started to win. None of it mattered. My father waved his hand dismissively. Software is intangible. We can't see it. We can't touch it. We don't understand it. But you could see the results. I was standing now, my hands clenched into fists. I showed you the data. You chose not to look. Trevor decided to pile on. Maybe if you were more successful, They'd want to invest in you too. I whirled on him. You sabotaged my hospital deal. You deliberately destroyed an opportunity that would have changed everything for my company. Trevor's face arranged itself into an expression of shocked innocence. Are you still on that conspiracy theory? My parents immediately jumped to his defense. That's enough accusations, my father said. Your jealousy is unbecoming. I pulled out my phone and showed them the research I had compiled on luxury car rental businesses, the failure rates, the financial pitfalls, the competitors who had already crashed and burned in our market. My father glanced at it for maybe 3 seconds. We've done our own research, he said. Show me, I challenged. Show me your research. My mother's voice was final. We don't need to justify our decisions to you. That's when I understood the real truth. This wasn't about business viability. This wasn't about risk assessment or market analysis. I asked the question directly. Is this because Trevor is your son, and I'm your daughter? The silence that followed was deafening. Then my parents both started denying it, saying I was being ridiculous, that this was purely about business viability. Then explain the math, I said, my voice deadly calm. Explain to me how his completely unproven idea with no track record and obvious market problems is worth 10 times my proven concept with documented results and clear market need. More silence. My father finally spoke. This discussion is over. We've made our decision. And it's final. I stood up to leave. My mother called after me. We hope you'll be supportive of your brother during this exciting time. I turned back at the door, and something in me just broke open. I hope you'll remember this moment when his business fails and you've lost almost $1 million. Trevor sneered at me. Bitter much? I looked at him. Really looked at him. And saw him clearly for the first time. He wasn't just spoiled. He was mediocre, coddled, and completely unprepared for the reality of running a business. And my parents had just handed him $750,000 to prove it. I've been supporting myself while building a real company, I said. Trevor has been living in your pool house playing video games for 3 years. But sure, he's the one who deserves $725,000. My father's face turned red. That's enough. Get out. I left. I didn't cry until I was in my car. Then I drove to my best friend Camila's apartment and completely broke down. She held me while I sobbed, listened to the whole story, and then said something I needed to hear. You're going to prove them all wrong. And when you do, it's going to be so much sweeter because you did it without them. 3 months after getting his massive check, Trevor officially launched Premier Velocity Club. The facility was in an expensive part of town, all gleaming glass and polished concrete. The website was flashy but substance-free. The social media campaign was loud and everywhere. My parents attended the grand opening and posted photos on Facebook, beaming with pride next to Trevor and his collection of exotic vehicles. He had bought 5 cars, a Ferrari, a Lamborghini, a Porsche, a McLaren, and a vintage Corvette. According to the business filings I found online, he had already spent $600,000 of the $725,000. I didn't go to the opening. I couldn't stomach it. But I saw the photos online, and each one felt like another small betrayal. The first month results for Premier Velocity Club were disastrous. Trevor got exactly 3 rentals, generating $12,000 in revenue. His insurance costs for that month were $8,000. The facility rent was $6,000. He was losing money from day one, burning through capital at an alarming rate. But on social media, Trevor posted constantly about living the dream and running my empire. The cognitive dissonance was staggering. Meanwhile, my company had been growing steadily despite every obstacle. Medflow now had 8 employees, all talented people who believed in the mission. We had 23 clients across 4 states. Our annual revenue had hit $560,000, and we were finally profitable. One of my key team members was Duncan, a 26-year-old developer who had built critical new features that made our software even more competitive. He was brilliant, dedicated, and essential to our next product version. So when Duncan came into my office one morning looking uncomfortable, my stomach dropped. "Trevor contacted me," he said. I closed my laptop. What did he say? Duncan showed me the message. Trevor was offering him a 60% salary increase to come consult for Premier Velocity Club. The job description was deliberately vague. Just help with tech stuff for a luxury car rental business that had no tech component. It was obvious what this was. Trevor was trying to poach my key employee, gut my team, and sabotage my company's growth. Duncan was loyal and had already decided to stay, but he wanted me to know what was happening. I started investigating and discovered that Trevor had also contacted 2 other members of my team. One of them, my marketing specialist Faye, was actually considering the offer because Trevor was throwing around money he hadn't earned. I had to scramble to put together counter offers, matching Trevor's inflated salary proposals. It strained Medflow's finances significantly, but I couldn't afford to lose my team. We managed to keep everyone, but it cost us. I called Trevor directly, fury making my hands shake as I dialed. "Stay away from my employees," I said the moment he answered. He actually laughed. "It's a free market, sis. Can't compete? You're using mom and dad's money to sabotage me," I said. "That's not competition. That's targeted destruction." "I'm building my network," Trevor said casually. "Not my fault your people want better opportunities. You don't even have a real job for them. You're running a failing car rental business. What could they possibly do for you? Jealous that I have $725,000 to play with?" he said. I could hear the smirk in his voice. I hung up. There was no point. He wasn't going to stop, and my parents would never hold him accountable. But the poaching attempt wasn't even the worst of it. I was in the process of pursuing Series A funding for Medflow. We needed about $1.2 million to scale nationally, to hire more people, to expand our marketing, to really break into the broader healthcare market. I had meetings scheduled with 3 venture capital firms, and I was cautiously optimistic. The first meeting went well. The partner seemed genuinely interested, asked smart questions, and indicated they wanted to move forward with due diligence. The second meeting was different. The partner was oddly cold from the start, asking if the company was stable and if there were any concerns about leadership. I was confused, but addressed every concern professionally. The meeting ended awkwardly, and I didn't get a second round. The third VC firm canceled the meeting last minute, with no explanation. I reached out to contacts in the industry trying to understand what had gone wrong. What I discovered made me physically ill. Someone had been systematically spreading rumors about me and Medflow. The rumors claimed I was difficult to work with, that I was losing key employees, and most damningly, that even my own family didn't support my business. The source of these rumors was traced back through multiple channels to Trevor's LinkedIn activity and direct messages to people in the tech and investment community. He had been positioning himself as a concerned brother trying to warn people about me. He told investors things like, "My sister means well, but even our parents wouldn't invest in her idea. That should tell you something." He was weaponizing our parents' rejection, using it as evidence that my company was fundamentally flawed. And worst of all, it was working. Investors were listening to him. I sat in my office, staring at screenshots of his messages, at forwarded emails from people who thought I should know what was being said, and I felt something in me go cold and hard. This wasn't sibling rivalry. This wasn't even normal jealousy. This was a deliberate, systematic attempt to destroy everything I had built. I consulted with a lawyer about whether I could sue Trevor for tortious interference or defamation. The lawyer said it would be hard to prove damages, and even harder to win. The better strategy, he said, was to succeed so dramatically that his words became meaningless. I decided to confront my parents one more time with all the evidence. I requested a formal meeting with my parents at their house. I brought printed documentation of everything. Screenshots of Trevor's messages trying to poach my employees, testimonies from Duncan and others about his tactics, contacts from the investor community showing how he had poisoned those relationships, and even finally, confirmation about how he had sabotaged my hospital deal years ago. I had tracked down someone who was willing to confirm that Trevor had made that destructive phone call. I laid it all out on their dining room table like evidence in a trial. I showed them every piece of proof, walking through the timeline of Trevor's deliberate sabotage. My father looked at the documents with what I can only describe as studied disinterest. "This seems circumstantial," he said. My mother picked up one of the screenshots, glanced at it, and put it back down. "Trevor wouldn't be this underhanded. This isn't who he is. It's all documented," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "There are multiple witnesses. There's a clear pattern. Has been trying to destroy my company for years." My father sighed like I was being tedious. "Perhaps there are misunderstandings here. Context we're not seeing." He admitted to trying to poach my employees. I pulled out my phone. I recorded the call where he laughed about it. I played the recording. Trevor's voice came through clearly, laughing about how it was a free market and asking if I couldn't compete. My mother's face tightened, but not in the way I expected. "You recorded your brother without his permission?" she said. "That's what you're focused on." I was incredulous. "Not the fact that he's trying to destroy my business?" My father's voice was firm. "Your brother's business is struggling. Maybe he was just trying to hire good people to help him turn things around." I pulled out the financial research I had done on Premier Velocity Club. The numbers were public record through business filings. "Trevor's business isn't just struggling," I said. "It's a complete disaster. 8 months in, and he's burned through almost $700,000 of your money. Total revenue is $71,000. Total expenses are $690,000. He still has 5 cars, but he owes money on insurance. The facility lease is underwater, and there are unpaid vendor bills. One of the cars was damaged during a rental, and he's in an insurance dispute over it. He's facing potential lawsuits." I spread the documents out. "This is what $725,000 bought you. A failing business and a son who's trying to destroy his sister's successful company while his own collapses." My parents didn't know it was this bad. I could see it in their faces. My father looked uncomfortable. "Every business has growing pains. This isn't growing pains," I said. "This is a total failure. And while his business burns your money, he's spending his energy trying to sabotage my profitable company." My mother turned to my father. "Did you know it was this bad?" My father admitted. "Trevor mentioned some cash flow issues. I didn't realize the extent. I thought maybe, finally, they would see. They would acknowledge what Trevor had done, what they had enabled." Instead, my father sat back in his chair and asked, "What do you want, Marlene?" "I want you to acknowledge that you treated us differently," I said. "I want you to stop enabling Trevor's sabotage. I want you to see that I built something real while he burned through almost $1 million. My mother's voice was cold. "We've always treated you equally." I actually laughed. It came out bitter and sharp. $70,000 versus $725,000. That's your definition of equal? My father's jaw tightened. "We gave based on need and potential." "No," I said. "You gave based on who you value more. Based on who you believe in. And it was never me." My mother stood up. "If you can't be happy for your brother, if you can't support this family, perhaps you need to take some distance," my father added. And his words were clearly meant as a threat. "We're in the process of updating our estate planning, Marlene. Your attitude here is concerning to us." I stared at him. "Are you threatening to disinherit me because I won't quietly accept Trevor's sabotage?" "We're saying," my father replied, "that family harmony matters. That supporting each other matters. Trevor is family too," my mother said. "Your constant attacks on him need to stop." I finally saw it with complete clarity. They were threatening to cut me out of their will. To punish me financially. Unless I shut up and accepted being treated as less than. Unless I let Trevor destroy what I had built without complaint. I stood up, gathering my documents. Keep your inheritance, I said. I don't want anything from people who have never believed in me, who've never seen my worth, who chose favoritism over fairness every single time. I walked toward the door. My father called after me. You're making a mistake. I turned back. The only mistake I made was thinking you would ever see me the way you see him. I left that house, and I knew I was never coming back. Not for Sunday dinners, not for holidays, not for anything. They had made their choice. Now I was making mine. That night, alone in my apartment, I finally let myself completely break down. Years of rejection, years of sabotage, years of watching my brother be handed everything while I fought for scraps. It all came crashing down on me at once. I looked at my laptop, at the business metrics that showed Medflow was actually succeeding despite everything, and it felt hollow. What was the point of success if the people who were supposed to love you most couldn't even acknowledge it? If they actively worked against it? I found myself questioning everything. My worth as a person. My abilities as an entrepreneur. Whether any of this had been worth the cost. I actually considered giving up, selling the company, moving to a different city, starting over somewhere where the weight of my family's rejection wouldn't press down on me every single day. At midnight, I called Camila, my best friend, and I was sobbing so hard I could barely form words. She came over immediately, showing up at my door with wine and a box of tissues. I poured out everything that had happened. The latest confrontation. Trevor's escalating sabotage. The threat about the inheritance. All of it. Camila listened without interrupting. And when I finished, she said something I desperately needed to hear. Your parents are toxic. Trevor is a spoiled, mediocre man who's been handed everything and squandered it. And you've built something incredible despite them actively trying to stop you. That makes you a warrior. Marlene. But they're my family, I said weakly. Family doesn't destroy you, Camila replied. What they're doing isn't love. It's control and favoritism and cruelty. You don't owe them anything. She suggested I consider therapy to process the trauma of how they had treated me. I realized she was right. I had been in denial about how badly they had damaged me, trying to pretend their rejection didn't cut as deep as it did. The next day, I had a meeting scheduled with Wendell, my original angel investor and mentor. He was 64 now, semi-retired but still active in the startup community. I walked into the coffee shop where we were meeting, and he took one look at my face and knew something was wrong. I told him about Trevor poisoning my investor relationships. Wendell's face turned red with anger. That's tortious interference, he said. Possibly legally actionable, definitely unethical as hell. But more than the legal analysis, Wendell said something that started to heal something in me. I've been watching your progress, Marlene. I'm incredibly impressed by your resilience. What your family thinks is completely irrelevant to your actual worth. He offered to introduce me to his venture capital contacts, to personally vouch for me and counteract whatever poison Trevor had spread. Then Wendell shared his own story. His father had thought he would fail when he started his first tech company in the 90s, never supported him, never believed in him, never even tried to understand what he was building. Wendell went on to build a massively successful company and eventually sold it for $80 million. His father tried to reconcile after the success became public and undeniable. Wendell refused. Some people will never give you credit, Wendell told me, not because you don't deserve it, but because they lack the vision to see your value. Their limitations are not yours to carry. You succeed anyway, and you do it for yourself, not for their validation. I called a team meeting the next day, deciding to be completely transparent about what had been happening. I explained that Trevor had tried to poach several team members, that he had been spreading rumors in the industry, and that I wanted everyone to know the full situation. I half expected some people might decide to leave. The uncertainty was too much, or maybe they would doubt my leadership. Instead, my team rallied around me in a way that brought tears to my eyes. Duncan spoke first. Trevor offered me a lot of money, but money isn't why I'm here. You gave me my first real opportunity to do meaningful work. You treat me with respect. You've built a culture where people matter. I'm not going anywhere. Faye, who had been considering Trevor's offer, spoke next. I was tempted by the salary, I'll admit, but I've been thinking about it, and I want to be part of building something real. This company is real. What Trevor's doing is fake. One by one, other team members shared similar sentiments. They had seen my work ethic, my integrity, my vision. They wanted to be part of Medflow's success story. My marketing lead, Yvette, who was 41 and had worked at several startups before, made a suggestion. Let's prove them all wrong by succeeding bigger than anyone expected. Let's go for awards, press coverage, industry recognition. Let's make so much noise that Trevor's whispers become meaningless. The team agreed, and we started brainstorming strategy right there in the conference room. We mapped out plans for entering industry competitions, pitching stories to business journalists, scaling our client base aggressively. For the first time in weeks, I felt hope. These people were my real family. They believed in me. And more importantly, I was learning to believe in myself again, with or without my parents' approval. 2 months after that team meeting, everything changed. We landed the biggest contract in Medflow's history. The client was a regional hospital network with 12 facilities spread across 3 states. The contract was worth $3.2 million over 3 years. The decision came after an extensive vetting process where they had tested our software against 3 competitors, including the one Trevor had steered my original hospital client toward years ago. Our results were undeniable. The pilot program we ran at one of their flagship hospitals showed patient satisfaction improvement of 28%, staff retention increase of 41%, and scheduling efficiency gains of 91%. The hospital network's CEO, a man named Gregory who was 57 and known for being extremely selective about technology vendors, told me personally why they chose us. Your system is revolutionary, Marlene. We've tried everything else on the market. Nothing comes close to what you've built. He also asked why Medflow wasn't more widely known, why we weren't a household name in health tech yet. I gave him a diplomatic answer about being focused on building great technology before scaling marketing, but the real answer was that I had been too busy fighting sabotage and bootstrapping without capital to do proper publicity. That was about to change. The contract signing was a major event. Local business media covered it. The story appeared in the Regional Business Journal, with the headline, Local Health Tech Startup Lands, Multi-million-dollar Deal. The article included a long interview with me where I talked about Medflow's journey, about starting with minimal investment and building through determination and results. I deliberately mentioned that I had started the company with minimal outside investment, building through sheer determination. I didn't name my parents or Trevor, but anyone who knew the story would understand the subtext. The article went moderately viral in the local tech community. The following month, Medflow won the Innovative Health Tech Solution Award at the Regional Tech Summit. It was a prestigious recognition, and I was invited to give an acceptance speech. Standing on that stage, looking out at an audience of hundreds of tech professionals, investors, and entrepreneurs, I felt something shift inside me. I thanked my team first, naming each person and what they had contributed. Then, I said something I had been holding back for years. To everyone who doubted this was possible, especially those closest to me, thank you for the motivation. Your doubt made me stronger, your rejection made me more determined, and your sabotage showed me exactly who I never want to become. The audience erupted in applause. People understood. After the ceremony, multiple venture capitalists approached me. One of them was a woman named Patricia who was 52 and a managing partner at a major investment firm. We heard some rumors about you and your company, she said bluntly, but winners always have people trying to tear them down. Your results speak much louder than anyone's whispers. We should talk about Series A. Over the next few weeks, I took meetings with 3 different VC firms. All 3 made offers. Patricia's firm offered the best terms, $1.8 million for 20% equity, valuing Medflow at $9 million. The deal closed within 6 weeks, which was remarkably fast for venture capital. I was careful throughout the process to document everything, to be completely transparent, to make sure there were no grounds for anyone to claim instability or problems. The funding gave us everything we needed to scale nationally. While all this was happening, Trevor's business was collapsing in spectacular fashion. Premier Velocity Club closed permanently after just 11 months of operation. All 5 vehicles were sold at significant losses because they had depreciated, and one had accident damage that hurt its value. Trevor still owed substantial money to insurance companies, to the facility leaseholder, and to various vendors he had never paid. My parents ended up giving him another $100,000 just to cover his debts and avoid lawsuits. Total money my family invested in Trevor's failed business, over $800,000. Total return: nothing but debt and embarrassment. Trevor moved back into my parents' pool house, broke, bitter, and with a failed business on his record that would make investors avoid him for years. I heard about all this through my Aunt Gretchen, who had stayed in touch with me despite my estrangement from my parents. "Your mother is devastated about Trevor," she told me over coffee. "Your father won't admit they made a mistake, but I think he knows. They're both too proud to reach out to you." Gretchen asked if I would consider coming to a family event, maybe to help smooth things over. I declined. I'm focused on my company and the people who actually support me. Perhaps my parents should focus on accountability instead of pride. Gretchen sighed but said she understood. "You were treated unfairly, dear. Everyone in the family can see it, even if your parents can't admit it." 6 months after closing our Series A funding, I was invited to speak at a major national health tech conference in Chicago. The event drew over 1,500 attendees from across the country, including press, investors, hospital administrators, and other entrepreneurs. I was asked to be part of a panel discussion titled "Overcoming Barriers in Tech Entrepreneurship." The other panelists were impressive: founders who had built successful companies, investors who funded innovation, academics who studied entrepreneurship. The moderator, a well-respected tech journalist, asked each of us to share our biggest obstacle in building our companies. When it was my turn to answer, I paused and made a decision. I was tired of hiding the truth. "My biggest obstacle," I said into the microphone, "was my own family." The room went quiet. I continued, choosing my words carefully but honestly. "When I asked my family for $70,000 to start my healthcare software company, a company I had already beta tested with proven results, I was told it was too risky, that they couldn't throw money away on something so uncertain. 3 years later, that same family gave over $700,000 to my sibling for a completely unproven luxury car rental business with no experience, no testing, and obvious market problems. That business failed completely within a year. Meanwhile, I bootstrapped my company, fought through deliberate sabotage, and built what is now valued at $9 million and growing." The audience was absolutely silent, hanging on every word. "Sometimes," I said, "your biggest obstacles are the people who should support you most. The people who are supposed to believe in you but choose not to, often for reasons that have nothing to do with your actual abilities or your business viability." But that taught me something crucial. I don't need validation from people who can't see my worth. I only need to prove it to myself and to the people who do see it. The audience gave me a standing ovation that lasted almost a full minute. After the panel ended, dozens of people approached me. Many were women who shared eerily similar stories of parents who funded their brothers' businesses but not theirs. Others were men who had been passed over in favor of siblings with more traditional business ideas. One woman told me through tears that she thought she was the only one who had experienced that kind of family favoritism. "You just told my story," she said, "and seeing that you succeeded anyway gives me hope." A major business publication had a journalist at the conference who approached me about doing a feature article. I agreed to an interview, and 2 weeks later, The article ran with the headline "Health Tech Founder Who Succeeded Despite Family Rejection." The article laid out the full story, using my real name and real details. It mentioned that my parents refused $70,000 for my proven concept but invested $725,000 in my brother's luxury car rental idea. It detailed how that business failed completely while my company thrived. The article included quotes from my clients praising Medflow's impact, from my employees talking about my leadership, and from investors who had bet on me after doing real due diligence. The article went viral. Within 48 hours, it had been shared thousands of times across social media platforms. The comments section was overwhelmingly supportive. People tagged their own stories of family dynamics and favoritism. Some commenters from my hometown recognized enough details to identify my family, though I had been careful not to name them directly. My phone exploded with messages. Cousins, aunts, uncles, and extended family members reached out with support. Many said they had always seen how differently my parents treated Trevor and me, but they hadn't felt it was their place to intervene. Now they wanted me to know they were proud of what I had built. My parents saw the article. I know because my father called me 3 days after it published. "How could you embarrass us like this publicly?" he demanded the moment I answered. I was calm. I had been expecting this call. I told the truth. "Dad, I never named you. I never identified you directly. If you feel embarrassed, maybe that's because deep down you know your choices were wrong." "Everyone knows it's us," he shouted. "You've humiliated this family. Our friends, our business associates, everyone is talking about it." "I humiliated you?" I said. "Or did your own choices humiliate you? You gave Trevor over $800,000 total for a business that failed in less than a year. You refused me $70,000 for a business that's now worth millions. Those are facts. If those facts are embarrassing, that's on you, not me." My mother got on the phone. Her voice was icy. "You've gone too far, Marlene. Your brother is devastated by this article. Trevor tried to destroy my business multiple times while his own business was collapsing," I said. "I succeeded anyway. If he's devastated, maybe he should reflect on his own actions." My father came back on the line. "We want you to issue a public retraction. Contact that journalist and tell them the article exaggerated, that it wasn't accurate." "No," I said simply. "Everything in that article is factual. I won't lie to protect you from the consequences of your choices." My mother's voice cut in again. "Then you are no longer welcome in this family." I felt sad when she said that, but also lighter. I stopped considering myself part of this family when you repeatedly chose favoritism over fairness. When you enabled Trevor's sabotage. When you threatened to disinherit me for not accepting mistreatment. You made your choice. In making mine. I hung up the phone. Then I blocked both their numbers. I felt grief, but I also felt free. 1 year later, Medflow reached a milestone I had once only dreamed about. Our client base had grown to 74 healthcare facilities across 12 states. Annual revenue hit $8.3 million. My team had expanded to 37 talented people who came to work every day excited about the impact we were making. Company valuation, according to multiple investors interested in our Series B round, was $26 million. I was featured in national business magazines, included on several 30, under 40 or rising stars lists, even though I was now 34. I spoke at conferences regularly and had become an advocate for underestimated founders, especially women and minorities facing bias. I started a mentorship program and a small grant fund specifically to help founders who were facing the kind of obstacles I had faced. The first grant we gave out was for exactly $70,000, the amount my parents had refused me. I chose recipients who had proven concepts but were being told they were too risky, who were facing family or investor bias, who just needed someone to believe in them. My personal life had transformed too. I bought a beautiful condo with floor-to-ceiling windows and a view of the city. I traveled to conferences and took real vacations for the first time in years. I was dating someone wonderful, a man named Alden who was 36, an architect with his own successful practice. He admired my drive but also encouraged me to have balance and joy in my life. I was genuinely happy in a way I had never been when I was constantly seeking my parents' approval. 3 months after that milestone, something unexpected happened. I was working at a coffee shop on a Saturday morning, reviewing pitch decks for our grant program, when someone approached my table. I looked up and saw my mother, Vivian, standing there looking uncertain. "May I sit?" she asked. I was surprised but nodded. She sat down across from me, and we stared at each other in awkward silence for a long moment. Finally, she spoke. "I read about your Series B discussions, $26 million valuation. That's remarkable." "Yes," I said simply. More silence. Then Vivian continued. "Your father won't admit this, and I'm not speaking for him, but I've come to realize we made mistakes with you and Trevor." I stayed quiet, waiting to see where this would go. "Trevor wasn't ready for that money," she said quietly. "We can see that now. Has struggled ever since, and I think we damaged him by giving him so much without making him earn it." "I tried to tell you that," I said. "I showed you the research. You didn't want to listen." "I know," she admitted. "We were so focused on supporting him, on giving him opportunities, that we were blind to how differently we treated you." She went on to explain, though she was careful to say she wasn't making excuses, that she and my father had grown up with very traditional views about gender and success. They had wanted their son to be successful in business, and they had assumed I would be fine because I was smart and capable. They thought I didn't need their help the way Trevor did. "That's not an excuse," I said. "That's just another way of saying you valued him more." Vivian's eyes filled with tears. "You're right. And I'm sorry. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that I see it now. I see what we did wrong." I considered her words carefully. Part of me wanted to stay angry, to protect myself with that anger. But another part of me was curious about whether real change was possible. "I appreciate you saying that," I finally said, "but it doesn't change what happened. It doesn't erase years of favoritism and sabotage that you enabled. It doesn't give me back the time I lost fighting battles I should never have had to fight." Vivian nodded, wiping her eyes. "I understand. Is there any path to rebuilding a relationship? Any possibility of reconciliation?" I was honest. "I don't know. The trust is gone. You and Dad chose Trevor repeatedly, even when he was actively sabotaging me. You threatened to disinherit me for standing up for myself. Those aren't small things." "I know," she whispered. "What would rebuilding even look like?" she asked. I thought about it. If you're serious about change, it requires more than words and one coffee shop conversation. It would require action, real accountability, and probably years of therapy. Family therapy where we actually address what happened. Real conversations where you acknowledge specifically what you did wrong, not just vague apologies. Public acknowledgement to our extended family about the favoritism. And most importantly, boundaries with Trevor. He can't be in my life unless he takes genuine accountability for his sabotage. Vivian absorbed that. "Your father won't agree to therapy or public acknowledgement. He thinks private apologies should be enough. Then we don't have a path forward," I said gently but firmly. "I'm not interested in rug sweeping or pretending everything is fine. I've built a good life without your approval. If you want to be part of it, the terms have to be different than they were." Vivian sat with that reality. Finally, she asked, "Can I at least stay in touch? Email you occasionally to see how you're doing?" I considered it. "You can email me. I'll respond when I feel comfortable doing so. But I won't pretend everything is fine, and I won't accept anything less than real respect." She nodded. "That seems fair." We parted awkwardly, but without hostility. I watched her walk away and felt surprisingly calm. That evening, I sat at my desk and wrote in my journal, something I had started doing in therapy. I wrote about the entire journey, from that first rejection 3 years ago, to this strange coffee shop reconciliation attempt. And I realized something profound. My parents' rejection had actually been a gift, though it was wrapped in pain and betrayal. If they had funded me, I would have always felt obligated to them. I would have had to listen to their input, accept their control, live with their conditions. Instead, I had built something entirely mine. Every success belonged to me. Every milestone was achieved through my own determination and the support of people who genuinely believed in me. I had proven to myself what I was capable of, and that knowledge was worth more than any amount of their money. I also realized that some people will never be able to see your value, not because you lack value but because they lack the vision to see it. My parents' limitations were never mine to carry or fix. Their inability to believe in me said everything about them and nothing about my actual worth or capabilities. The most important relationship I had rebuilt during this journey was with myself. I had learned to trust my own judgment, to believe in my abilities even when others didn't, to see my worth independent of external validation. Looking forward, the future was bright. MedFlow was expanding internationally with talks underway with hospital systems in 3 European countries. We were planning to take the company public in 3 to 5 years, with projected valuations at IPO potentially exceeding $100 million. I had also started a foundation dedicated to funding underestimated entrepreneurs, especially women and people of color who were facing the same bias I had faced. Our first round of grants went out to 10 founders, each receiving exactly $70,000, the amount my parents had refused me. I personally reviewed every application, looking for people with proven concepts who just needed someone to believe in them. Paying forward the support I wished I had received became one of the most meaningful parts of my success. On my desk, I kept a photo, but it wasn't a family photo with my parents and Trevor. It was a team photo from MedFlow's last company retreat, 37 people who had believed in the mission and in me. These people were my real family, the family I had chosen and who had chosen me back. That afternoon, my phone rang with a call from Patricia, my lead investor, about finalizing our Series B round. I answered with confidence. "Hello, this is Marlene." My voice was strong, steady, unshakable. Everything I had built stood on a foundation of my own merit, my own resilience, my own vision. That was a foundation no one could ever take away. Sometimes the people who should believe in you won't. Sometimes their rejection becomes the fuel that drives you to prove everyone wrong. But most importantly, their rejection teaches you to prove to yourself that you're capable of absolutely anything, with or without their approval. And that lesson, painful as it was to learn, turned out to be the most valuable gift of all. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever been doubted by the people closest to you? Have you ever had to prove yourself to family members who didn't believe in your dreams? Drop your story in the comments below because I know so many of you have faced similar challenges. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button. And if you believe in supporting people who refuse to give up despite the odds, subscribe to this channel and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Thank you for listening to my journey. I hope it reminds you that your worth is not determined by who believes in you, but by what you believe about yourself. Keep fighting for your dreams. Keep building what matters to you. And remember that sometimes, the best revenge is simply living well and succeeding on your own terms. Until next time, stay strong and keep proving them wrong.